without further ado, Trevor.
Thank you for the introduction, Ivan. Hail friends and enemies alike. My name is Trevor Taylor, an intrepid young catboy mixing assistant, making waves in the audio engineering industry as the lead assistant to the famed art mixer, Jeff Ellis Worldwide. For this video, Jeff has decided not to introduce himself, as he believes a man of his artistic prowess should never self-introduce. Nay, he must first be heralded by another. His greatness sung like an ancient bird's tale. To introduce oneself is an embarrassment, nay, a demeaning act, and above all, unartful. Much like the Roman kings of yore, such an introduction requires pomp, ideally accompanied by trumpets, or at the very least, an overzealous assistant. Let it be known that this script, however, was written by Jeff Ellis Worldwide himself, to be read by me, Trevor Taylor, as Jeff does not believe I have yet accumulated the life experience, wisdom, or emotional fortitude required to properly introduce a man of his great prominence, in my own words. Jeff would also like to note that I am allowed only one take to read this script on camera. This is intended as a lesson in remaining cool and calm under fire, for it is the furnace of life's great struggles that we forge our greatest lessons, and possibly our greatest mistakes, but mostly lessons. The video you're about to watch is an interview with Jeff Ellis Worldwide at this year's NAMM event, where he discusses his forthcoming and maximally profitable online course, Mixer Brain, which, this is a little outdated, is now for sale. It came out on February 28th, but there should be a coupon for you somewhere for a little discount. Jeff aims to entirely reshape the world of record making by curing your mixer brain and returning you to the path of virtue. Yes, you specifically. To find out more about Mixer Brain, which released on February 28th, 2025, please watch this video and click the link below for a free lesson. Yes, a free lesson. You literally have no excuse. Learn how to cure your mixer brain today. And now, without further ado, here's Jeff Ellis Worldwide at the Presonus booth at NAMM 2025. Let it be known that Jeff and I made huge sacrifices to bring you this footage, as we both got sick for 1.5 weeks after bravely entering the diseased, plague-ridden, and questionably hygienic audio convention known as NAMM. Thank you, and as always, may God have mercy on your soul.
For everybody who's here that doesn't know, which I'm sure nobody does, what is Mixer Brain to you? What does that mean? And we'll get into more of the granular details later, but just a high-level view, what is Mixer Brain?
Okay, so Mixer Brain is, it's not a good thing. It sounds like a good thing, it sounds cool, but Mixer Brain is a disease that we all get. In fact, it's super contagious at NAMM. Like everybody at NAMM just stepping foot in here has Mixer Brain. And it's a brain disease that teaches you to care more about, like if you're a painter, to care more about the paintbrush than the actual canvas, okay? So you can think of like an 1176 compressor as the paintbrush, and then your song is the canvas. So people get utterly obsessed with this non-creative mindset. Like Abby, she's the feeling brain girl, and feeling brain is the opposite of mixer brain. Feeling brain is when you're thinking about art and emotion, and you're feeling instead of listening. And I've realized in my journey, because I'm one of the few mixers on earth that just opens up DAW sessions. Like, I don't want stems, so I'm going through all the different DAWs whenever I get a song to mix. It was made in Ableton, I'll mix it as Ableton. If it's in Studio One, I call it a premix, so I'll go through Studio One, adjust all the plugins and everything. And everything, I open up 200 and 250 DAW sessions a year. And what I see people doing is clearly they're just in their mixer brain. No one's actually listening. And I found that engineers are generally the worst at listening because they're in their mixer brain. And what I end up seeing is top singers in the world with their top engineers and top producers, and they'll have 15 plugins on one vocal chain, like 15. I saw one the other day that had 3 Soothe 2s on it. And this isn't for these aren't people that are kind of like newbie engineers. These are the top in the, working with the biggest artists. And what I'll come to find, and this has happened multiple times throughout my career, I'll bypass every single plugin other than maybe the reverbs and delays and the cool effects and stuff, and it will sound perfect and it will feel perfect. And so yeah, there's a lot of pitfalls of mixer brain, and I've created a course to try to return everybody back to their feeling brain and get out of their mixer brain. And this is something I have to work on all the time, because you can easily come back and get mixer brain when you thought it was cured and all. And it even goes down back to the insecurities of the amount of times the recent Kendrick album was so sick, right? Do you know how many people probably deleted their EP after hearing the new Kendrick album, because they're like, oh, that's so amazing, I can never be that good. Mixer brain is also the insecurity that we face throughout our entire career, and so there's a lot of depths to it, but I found the journey to curing your mixer brain is so much more important than any plugin or a piece of gear or whatever. So yeah, that's mixer brain.
That's amazing. And you said this is a common issue, not just for beginning mixing engineers. This is
especially the big time famous people. It's generally even worse. In fact, sometimes I open up, I'm not just mixing the biggest stuff in the world, sometimes I'll open, an artist just made a song in GarageBand, and because the artist doesn't know anything about engineering, they'll be like, well, sorry Jeff, I didn't do anything to it because I didn't know what to do. So what they end up doing is just existing from art, and they don't do anything, and almost always the stuff that I get from non-engineers, just random people recording doing nothing, is way better than I call them the producer bros. Like, the producer bro stuff is usually a mess. And this is an education problem, because everybody's learning off of people who learned off of YouTube, who learned off of other YouTube people. And there's great sources out there, but too much of it focuses on the paintbrush and not enough on the canvas. And I've been complaining about this for years, so I'm gonna stop complaining now, and I've done something about it. And that course just went on pre-sale yesterday. It's gonna launch in 3 weeks, and I think it's gonna be really good for the world of music.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And it's so easy to get caught up in it when you're mixing.
Right.
What are some of the signs that maybe some people hear when they're mixing, they can step back and be like, oh, I'm hitting that mixer brain stage, I'm overthinking things.
Yeah.
What are some of the early signs of that when you're in the war zone of mixing?
Okay, so I call it a death spiral, okay? Every one of your sessions has death spirals in them. Every one of my old sessions have death spirals in them. And when you hear a sound, before doing anything, just listen to the source. No one ever actually listens to the source. And start feeling like if it's a vocal, listen to where the emotion is. Try to think about what's the story of the song. And a lot of times, just getting the people they'll start applying tools before even getting the sound at a reasonable volume, right? So people will have the vocal's way too low. Well, they'll put a compressor on it, because every single compressor plugin's gonna add a ton of volume right out of the gate. And then that creates a problem, so they'll EQ it, and then, oh, something's weird, so a de-esser, and then oh, it's harsh now, we'll put Soothe 2 on it. Oh, now it's a little lifeless though, let's put another compressor on it. And then, I don't know, harmonic distortion, and you start spiraling, and every single plugin is adding volume along the way. So one of the principles that I teach is about you have to live in a world of normalization, meaning that you have to be aware that you actually just love the volume, not always the processing, right? And so we get these mixes, by the time you get to the end, there's no more emotion left. in fact, the more processing and compression you do on, let's say, a vocal or guitar, generally it's a trade-off between personality and just ease of not having to do automation, right? And there are some cool things about compression and EQ or whatever that with artifacts can be cool or whatever, but for the most part, just stop and listen before you do anything and think about what is the objective of your song and what is the core emotional element of the song. So an objective of a song might be to make someone cry, right? So figure out where the emotion of the song would help make someone cry. And that would be in most cases the vocal, right? So listen to the personality of the vocal and find all where the emotion lives in that vocal performance, and make sure you're not doing anything to hurt the emotion, but to only amplify it.
That's really inspiring. I feel like engineers, mix engineers, producers, we're so caught up in the technicalities and using certain compressors because that's what everybody's used to. That's what we have to use. We have to use this style of compressor on a vocal followed by this style of saturation, etc.
Yeah.
And to hear you speak about the art and the emotion about it is so refreshing.
Yeah, I mix top 40 songs with no compression a lot of times, or I'm just way dialing back what everybody did on it. I've probably added 4 compressors this year because by the time everything gets to me, it has 100 on them. And again, I'll bypass a vocal chain with 15 compressors on it just to find the actual recording had compression on it too. So I know for a fact, no one here at NAMM is listening to what they're doing. And I know that sounds crazy, but I'm one of the few people on earth. If you walk around, there's 1 or 2, maybe 0 people other than me that open up 200 to 300 DAW sessions a year from all the top producers or middle producers or whatever, and see exactly what people are doing. And this like mixer brain problem is extremely widespread, and it's a huge problem. And it's the reason why a lot of times you'll hear something on New Music Friday, a song that does really well, but the chorus comes in and you can't really fall into the daydream of the vocals, or there's so much like weird mouth noises or weird things, and you just can't connect to the lyrics. And if you can't connect with the lyrics, you can't fall into the daydream. And music is super creative and cool right now, but the engineering is really getting in the way of it, and we need to return ourselves kind of back to the principles of art and emotion. And if you haven't really experienced the before and after, you might not know how bad it is, but I'm sure some of you are sensing that. You listen to a record and it's like, this is like a cool artist song, but I'm not really falling into it. Now, I know like there are some great examples, like the latest Kendrick album, there's not 15 plugins on Kendrick's voice. I guarantee you I know for a fact, okay? Barely anything. Because he controls the dynamics in his pocket. He controls the emotion in his voice, and they're not trampling on that. Now, I don't work with Kendrick, but the people that do are doing a great job with him. But then there'll be other artists that are just like, I can't even follow what's going on here, and it's like really bothers me. And it's not just me, a lot of people don't exactly know what's going wrong, but they can feel it, and they just kind of tune out. So yeah, it's gotten real bad, real bad.
All right, yeah, absolutely. Well, now we know what mixer brain is.
Yes.
Let's back up the process a little bit. You've told us what you typically do first with a mix. You bypass everything, but let's say that
Not necessarily.
Okay, right. But let's say that that's not a problem. Let's say you get a mix that is, maybe you're starting from ground zero, even, or something that maybe you tracked, maybe you didn't. But where do you start in the mixing process if you don't have to bypass everything, but you're just looking to set that foundation?
Okay, cool. So I look at mixing as remodeling a house, right? So the first thing I'm gonna do is listen to where the rough mix is. And the way I work is, because I'm getting DAW sessions, I make for absolute certain I'm starting where they left off exactly, okay? Now there's gonna be a lot of great things about the rough mix and the rough production, and I go do everything in my power to protect what's good about it and only remodel where it needs work. For example, if you bought a cool house in the Hollywood Hills, the great architect, maybe the fixtures in the bathroom are messed up, but the tile looks great. So we're not just gonna start smashing out the tile, right? So I identify where are we losing the emotion? Like I said before, what is the objective of the song? If it's a dance song, where are we losing the emotion in the dance? Maybe something's overcompressed. Maybe the balance between the music and the drums aren't making you want to dance. So the first thing I look at it as or remodeling a house, or like doctors do something called the Hippocratic Oath, where they take a vow to do no harm. I don't want to do any harm. I want to identify where this song needs help. And sometimes it's 2%, sometimes it's 90%. And if a song is just a mess, when I listen to the rough mix and I'm like, I don't even know what this song is trying to be, then I can't work on the song. I'm just like, this isn't something I'll ever be able to do anything with, because my taste is that the song is broken. I won't be able to figure it out. So I don't just start nuking everything out and thinking I can do it better. I find where's the emotion not there, and I explore how to bring that back.
I love that. Philosophically, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
If somebody wanted to do a tangible takeaway, a lot of people start with drums, or they start with drums and bass, or some people start with the vocal and center everything around that. Do you have a process there where you're starting with a certain element, or you're starting at the loudest part of the song versus the quietest?
No, there's no process that I stick to, because each song I have to plot a strategy. It's like a fun strategy game, right? On songs that tend to need a lot of aesthetic work, I might do something where, okay, let's focus on getting the drums sounding cool, and then we'll get the bass cool, and I'll do a thing where I'm gonna set the aesthetic of the foundation of the music, and once that has an aesthetic, then I'll bring in the vocals and have the vocals create an aesthetic that matches the music. So, but I want people to get out of their mindset that there's like one strategy that fits all mixes. It's like, it's a strategy game, so you have to diagnose what is the pathway to get to what you're trying to achieve. So what's the pathway to maximum dance? What's the pathway to maximum cry? If you want the song to feel nostalgia, what do I need to do? And you plot a strategy, because sometimes you start all the way from the beginning, and there's no, it's again, every song is gonna have a different journey that you wanna jump onto, so don't be rigid about it. You wanna stay fluid on how to approach these things.
I think your approach to mixing is probably a true testament to why you're getting so much of the work that you get, I gotta say, because it's easy for us to templatize our work, or you find something that works for one project, you assume it's gonna work for everything else. And yes, it might technically work, but you're doing the art a disservice. And I love that about what you're talking about.
Yeah, back in the day, you could be a mixer that's like your CLA, like the fucking gangster rock mixer, you know what I mean? And certain genres kind of fall into a template in some respects, but music nowadays is all over the place, you know what I mean? And every single producer works in a completely different way. So another thing that we do too is when we work with a new producer, a new artist, we design a system that resonates with the way that they're making their music. So there's been some albums where I had to learn a whole new DAW just because we couldn't ever stem it out of the DAW. It was just, like for example, some of the hyperpop stuff we do, all the DAWs can kind of clip in a different way, which I've proven with the people from Isotope by running impulse responses. Like the Logic clip is different from the Studio One clip, is different from the, so sometimes that's the whole aesthetic. So we're all about, to be a great mixer nowadays, you can't have people try to fit into a workflow. You have to play a strategy game and develop a workflow that works great for you. If I worked with you, we'd come up with the system that worked great for the way that you produce. And that's how we can add value and help the music.
What about, I know we're very much in this singles economy in terms of like pumping out as many singles as possible. What about for a full album? Do you develop a system that way, or do you still treat each song like it's its own single?
It's all one strategy game. I've never been able to come up with any sort of like systemized approach to anything. It's kind of annoying, right? But no, it's always one big strategy game. If the album is so simple that a system can be developed to apply to the whole album, then do that. But if all the songs are kind of different, a lot of albums will have 15 different producers. Sometimes it's one producer. So it can be a lot if every song was produced by a different producer. Coming up with an approach that works best for interfacing with each producer is difficult. Like some of the producers I work with use Studio One, so they're so happy. I'm probably the only mixer in the world that is like taking Studio One DAW sessions. You know what I mean? And they love that because a lot of artists just swear by Studio One. So you know what I mean? So, but then I'm not gonna be like, oh, FL Studio guy, like live in my world. Like it's just it doesn't work.
Right.
Yeah.
For sure. A lot of people are doing vocal production at home, sending it off to mix. But for people who are maybe mixing their own vocals, give them some tangible takeaways here. How do you approach vocals so that they sit well in the mix? Are you running automation versus compression? Are there certain techniques that people here can take away so that they're getting the most out of their vocal tracks?
So I have a principle that I call the poignancy principle, okay? And what that means is a great singer is going to emphasize certain words. Like Whitney Houston, she was like, I will always love you. Whitney might emphasize the word love more so than I will, you know? So it's like, I will always love you, or like it's louder or whatever, right? Your compressors don't care about poignancy, right? So you put a bunch of compressors on it. Now the words that are supposed to be emphasized, and great singers will do naturally, will now be at the same volume kind of as like I will. And that's a problem. Now a little bit of compression isn't necessarily going to cause a problem with that, maybe not. But compressors were invented in World War II to help the signal noise ratio of like army radios and stuff like that. And now we live in a point where you can clip gain any word. So the first thing to do is like, if the natural dynamics and poignancy within the vocal are great, just protect that. Now, because we're always like comping in sections and whatnot, a lot of times you'll have a few words that kind of got out of weird volume. So what I do is I call it a poignancy edit. And actually Ivan's gotten really good at this too, where it's like when I pull back a lot of the over compression that producers will use, I'll be like, Ivan, hit me with the poignancy edit. And sometimes it's me that does it, sometimes it's Uncle Ivan, but we'll go through and emphasizing certain words for their emotional impact is huge, okay? And this makes such a massive difference. So we'll go through and we'll feel, we're not listening at this point, we're feeling to how each individual word is like connecting with our bodies and our minds and our hearts. And so what we'll do is before adding anything, I like to see how great can it be with nothing, okay? Now, when it's a song that's like 98% finished before it gets to me, I'm not gonna peel everything back and go through this. But when you're recording and producing and get the vocal feeling really great emotionally, and then it's like, okay, well, I wanna just glue it a little bit, then maybe do a compressor. A lot of times you'll find if you get the effects right, and the levels are right, your need for compression and EQ goes way down, right? But I'll see people just to save a little bit of time when the vocal levels are all over the place, they'll just keep adding compressor after compressor to kind of make them all even. But what that does is in the loud parts are gonna have like extra artifacts and mouth noises and sibilants and weird shenanigans because you're hitting the compressor really hard at that point. And then the quiet parts are gonna kind of sound better, and it just ends up being a disaster. And a lot of that can be avoided just by getting some clip gain out of the way. Makes a massive difference, and then you get to a point where you're really not doing a lot of stuff at the end, and then really focus on the effects and the cinema of the mix. Like that's where you're going to get your biggest emotional impact. Now we all know if we're producing like a MIDI piano, like a MIDI part, right? We all know it's super corny to take a MIDI piano and make all the velocity the same. Like if you make a piano all 127 velocity, in most cases it's going to feel corny, right? But when you're when you're putting 7 compressors on a vocal, which everybody does, this is not me being dramatic, I know, I open the sessions, it feels just as corny. But we've been trained to do that by YouTube and TikTok, and I hear like these TikTok reels of like what is Cardi B's vocal chain or whatever, and this engineer is like lists off 15 things, and I'm like, I know for a fact you did all of that without ever listening once, and you're smearing out their pocket, their emotions getting smeared out, and it's a huge problem. And I want the next generation of engineers to do better, because we're at the point now where most professional engineers are just doing harm and they don't even know it. And most of their artists can't even articulate why their vocal doesn't feel right because they don't understand these concepts.
For sure. Let's back up for a second. When you're listening to a song, what makes you go, that's a good mix?
When I can go through the whole emotional journey arc of the song without being taken out of it. So I fall into the daydream, and that's what I think makes a great mix. So what I call the moment of glory, like the highest emotional payoff moment in the song, hits perfectly. It isn't about like, does the snare drum sound good or bad or whatever. Yeah. It's like, did I fall into the daydream? Did I fall into the narrative of the dance or the vocal, or do I, you know what I mean? If a song's supposed to make me feel nostalgic, did I feel nostalgic? Did I, like, if you listen to like Coldplay's The Scientist and you start tearing up, like, when he's like, and take me back to the start or whatever, and like you're tearing up, it's like, okay, that's a good mix. They achieved the goal, right?
Right.
So yeah.
Love that. how do people achieve that? I know that we could talk for hours about that, but if there was like one simple thing, how do people achieve that?
Just, I mean, that's what I'm trying to teach in Mixer Brain. It's like these principles of art and emotion. It's actually a lot easier. Like balance, just the fader has a much bigger impact than everything else. And I know that's a super boring thing to hear, but if you start approaching it this way, and I prove this in the course, how massive an impact. Like the difference between goosebumps and no goosebumps is just balance. I promise you that. And that's how they were able to achieve that before any plugins existed. So taking a principle-based approach, focusing on what is the objective of the song, feeling emotion, and that's the foundation of everything. And it's actually mixing is way easier by a factor of like 1,000 than we all make it. And I promise you that, and I'm gonna show you, in the course I'm gonna mix a song by The Neighborhood, basically just using balance, and it's gonna go from like a janky rough mix to an incredible final product with barely any plugins, barely anything, just balance and aesthetic and focusing on finding where is the core emotion of the song.
Love that, man. We're gonna go through a few rapid fire.
Okay.
And then we will do a couple Q&A here in just a moment.
Cool.
Let's call out some of the BS. What are the most common misconceptions when it comes to mixing? Or one. You can
I
just give me
think
one.
compression is, especially in this nowadays. So people think compression is like some glory box of emotion and like making things bigger. Compressors don't make things bigger. There's a volume knob that makes it louder. Okay, but it actually compressors make things smaller, right? And they steal emotion. So you're in love with the volume knob, not the actual process of compression, okay?
Right.
That's probably the biggest one.
Love it. What's one piece of advice that you wish somebody would have given you when you started mixing?
Find your magic mixing volume and never touch your volume, okay? So for me, my magic mixing volume is 80 dB C-weighted, slow on my meter, okay? I just talked to Fab DuPont, he's 79, okay? So the magic mixing volume, and then making sure your monitoring setup is neutral reference.
Yeah.
This is huge. Like, don't do you will never mix anything good if what you're hearing outside of your computer is not very close to what's inside of the computer. And the analogy that I talk about for that is, if you're a film person and doing color correction, right? So you have to get the color and the brightness and everything right for the movie theater. If you're wearing colored sunglasses while you're doing color correction, that's obviously dumb, right? But it's literally the exact same thing if you're mixing and your listening environment is not an accurate depiction of what's going on inside your computer. So honestly, most everybody on Earth will be a good mixer if they just use their fader, stick to one magic listening volume, and have a neutral reference system, and you're already like 98% of the way there. And you're all gonna find how like hard we make everything by just doing foundational dumb decisions. Like I've mixed for years on not calibrated perfectly. Nothing's perfect in life, but like very close. And now in my studio, what I hear out of my speakers is very, very close to what's inside of the computer, and that has completely changed my life. And then I never touch my volume knob.
Amazing, amazing. Studio One Pro 7 has a whole host of stock plugins. I know we all, as engineers, love to buy thousands and thousands and thousands of plugins. Are stock plugins enough to get the job done?
100%. Easy, yeah.
Okay.
In fact, you never have to deviate. I think focus your plugin obsession on effects, like reverbs and delays and modulators, the tools of crafting aesthetic, okay? And then everything else can be super basic. What you have in Studio One is 1,000 times more tools than they had when they made Bohemian Rhapsody or whatever, you know what I mean?
That's true.
Yeah, absolutely okay. Now, if you're a creator, focus on getting cool instruments and effects and stuff like that. As a mixer, the stock stuff is just the fader is more powerful than anything else in any DAW, so yeah.
Love it, love it. Well, Jeff, thank you so much for your time.
Yes.
Let's open it up if anybody has a few questions. We'll take 2 or 3 questions here.
Thank you. Yo.
First of all, thank you for healing our mixer brain.
Oh, thank you. What's your name?
Chris.
Okay. Kumarti?
C-Mark.
Okay, got it.
So my question is, for when you're listening emotionally, like, is there a difference between, like, I'm really feeling this emotionally, or like when it hits and it feels right? Like,
Yeah.
does it hit a point where you're like, I can get more out of this, or do you accept it at the level that and then you're like, okay, I can move on?
Well, that's up to you, right? So you are an emotional person and you have feelings and stuff on the inside. That's probably true, right? Only Trevor does it. He's a sociopath. But if you're not a sociopath, then you have to go into like, if a song is reminding you of heartbreak, right? Is the song making you feel that heartbreak in your life? That's the only way you can approach it, right?
Yeah.
So you have to be honest with yourself. Is like, you know, some songs suck and you can't even do this at all, and that's just like, don't mix that. But like, you have to be honest with yourself. Am I achieving the emotion? And if not, sometimes you have to fight for it. A lot, like, I don't sit down and do perfect mixes, and I actually don't even put that pressure on myself. But by the time I get to the end, I'm gonna go to like through the depths of hell to find the emotion. You know what I mean? And sometimes it's really hard to figure it out.
Right.
Yeah, but just keep, yeah.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I feel like it makes a lot of sense why the music you worked on, like, connected with so many people on like a deep level. Because I listened to a lot of the Frank stuff when I was going through high school, and like, I didn't understand any of the technical stuff, but like, I could feel like Frank's like soul through it.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate this.
Yeah.
I'm definitely looking out for Mixer Brain.
Very little compression on Frank's voice.
Great question.
Almost none.
Anybody else before we wrap up? Yeah.
How do you keep your mixer brain in check when you're going through like just anything you're mixing?
It's a constant struggle. You know how like monks will spend years meditating out in the freezing cold? Like, it's a constant practice, right? And now even like making the Mixer Brain course is just like another level of like, I have to adhere to this like it's a religion, you know what I mean? So I stick to the principles, and the first step to curing your Mixer Brain is just knowing it exists and then being aware of, you'll fall into it. You're like, oh God, that's Mixer Brain, that's Mixer Brain. Or if I wake up and I'm just like feeling like I hate myself that day, which happens sometimes, just like it happens to everybody, I'm just like, I can't mix today. Like, I know that I'm not gonna be able to be honest with myself. When I get tired or worn out, I get like crabby and hate everything. So once I start sensing that, my creative juices are gone, I just shut it down. It's like, I can't be objective right now. So yeah, it's constant every day. And if I stop focusing on the principles of this stuff, I will fall backwards, okay? Because it's so easy to fall into these problems. Yeah. I still struggle with it.
Yeah.
It took me years to not touch my volume knob. Like, that level
Yeah.
of discipline is difficult, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Real quick before we wrap here, where can people find Mixer Brain? When's it coming out?
Mixerbrain.com pre-sales are out right now. It's 50% off right now. And my Instagram, Jeff Ellis Worldwide, has a 50% off coupon on there, and it's just mixerbrain.com. And if you're in your broke era, you can, it's basically right now it's the same price as Soothe too. So I know you all have that in your session, so you can afford it. And I'm really trying to change the world with this thing, so I'm trying to set it up to where pretty much everybody who cares about music can find a way to afford it, and can be split up into 4 payments. And now's the time to get it, because it's gonna get a little bit more expensive after it comes out. But mixerbrain.com, Jeff Ellis Worldwide on Instagram, follow me, and I promise you this will be the most value-added thing you ever do in your career. And if I'm wrong, you can come like hit me with a frying pan next year at NAMM, but you won't. So
Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody. Give Jeff Ellis a big hand.
thank you, everybody. Oh, Will, Breezy Will. Sorry, he's incognito.
Give it up one more time for Jeff Ellis.
Will is one of the few people on TikTok that's not wrong about everything. So we applaud you for. Thank you,
Awesome.
Justin.
Thanks, man. Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you.
Tell people about the show.
All right.